Good, happy Tuesday evening, June 2nd, 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Tuesday evening edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Tuesday evening, so let's begin. First up, COVID-19 in New Hampshire, what you need to know information. Let's take a look at that right now. And here is a look at that information for all of you right now. There are 4,685 number of people in New Hampshire have tested positive for COVID-19. 1,859,323 number of people in the United States who have tested positive. 245 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 456 number of people who have been hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And 106,925 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. This map of New Hampshire right here shows you where current cases of COVID-19 are. Manchester, 445. And this map of New Hampshire shows you where total cases of COVID-19 are. Manchester, 1195. Now let's take a look at these three charts here. The first chart right here, new cases each day in New Hampshire in the purple, daily new positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, new hospitalizations, and in the red are the deaths. Let's take a look at this chart here, current cases. In the purple, total current COVID-19 cases, and in the orange, current hospitalizations. And let's take a look at this chart here, total cases. In the purple, total positive COVID-19 cases. In the orange, total hospitalizations. In the red, deaths, and in the blue, recovered. And let's take a look at this chart here, age group of cases. Female and male of cases. And risk information. Now let's take a look at this chart here, race/ethnicity of cases. Hospitalizations, deaths, and percent of New Hampshire population. And again, your common symptoms: fever, lack of smell, cough, chills, and difficult breathing. How it spreads, and prevention tips. And be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. 19-year-old accused of throwing Facebook post encouraging riot in Manchester. Facebook post has been taken down, police say. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
In this life, there are only so many things you can count on. The sun rises.
19-year-old Daniel Zeron of Ashland was arraigned Tuesday morning by video on a charge of criminal threatening.
What plea do you wish the court to enter on your behalf today, sir?
Not guilty, Your Honor. Manchester police say he was behind a Facebook post asking people to gather tonight at a plaza on South Willow Street and then calling on them to, quote, take examples from riots in other cities.
The acts of calling people to commit crimes, violence, riots, that can't be tolerated, and we just can't tolerate that as a society.
Manchester's police chief says they worked with Facebook to quickly take down the post, but that didn't stop the problem.
The issue that we keep seeing happen here, and we're being notified literally hourly, is that there was a screenshot of that, and that it continues to circulate on social media.
At this point, officials believe that Zeron acted alone and is not connected to any group, but they don't know what effect, if any, the post will have on other people.
You don't know what the response is going to be with a Facebook post like that.
So contingency planning is in the works.
You will see extra officers out there for sure, and we're going to take this very serious.
Zeron is being held on preventative detention, a hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning. As of right now, his trial is scheduled for July 6th. Reporting live in Manchester, Ray Brewer, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. $50 additional COVID-19 deaths reported in Massachusetts with 358 new cases. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health reported 50 new COVID-19 related deaths across the state Tuesday, bringing the state's total of reported deaths to 7,085. The total number of reported COVID-19 cases rose to 101,163 after 358 new cases were reported by the state health officials on June 2nd. Five more Mainers with coronavirus have died, according to Maine CDC. Let's take a listen to that video from WMKW News 8 Maine.
First, take a look at the latest numbers from the Maine CDC. We just received the new data. There are 28 new cases today, bringing the total to 2,377 cases. Sadly, 5 new deaths have been reported, bringing the total to 94. That is the highest single-day increase to date. 1,646 Mainers have recovered.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. George Floyd protest updates for New York City. Most vehicles banned south of 96th Street when NYC curfew begins. As thousands of protesters gathered to protest the death of George Floyd at Floyd Square on Tuesday, New York City expanded and extended an 8 p.m. curfew through Sunday and announced most vehicles would be banned south of 96th Street in Manhattan during the curfew. The exception would be residents, essential workers, buses, and truck deliveries. Eyewitness News has also learned that effective immediately, regular days off have been canceled for all NYPD full-duty uniformed members. That means ununiformed NYPD police officers are working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, until further notice. This is not unpredicted. Regular days off were canceled for several months following September 11th. The Tuesday afternoon protests remained peaceful. Hundreds marched south towards the Brooklyn Bridge, only to face off with police redirecting them away. Black Lives Matter calls for fifth night of protest in front of White House before curfew. DC police are expecting protesters out for a fifth consecutive night in the city. The DC chief said in a news conference Tuesday morning with the mayor. Black Lives Matter DC issued an alert calling for protesters to gather at Lafayette Square in front of the White House at 5 p.m. BLM cautioned to wear a mask and plan to stay past curfew and stay safe. DC police arrested more than 300 people Monday night for violating the 7 p.m. curfew in the fourth night of protest after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. DC police chief said. The chief said he was alerted by federal authorities shortly before 6:30 p.m. Monday that there would be a movement of President Trump outside the White House. Within minutes, federal officers began to forcefully remove people protesting peacefully and lawfully from Lafayette Square. People were tear-gassed and shots of rubber bullets, according to numerous witnesses. DC police chief said people in the square were warned ahead of time that they would have to vacate the square, but protesters and reporters said they never heard a warning before police moved in, many of them on horseback. After Lafayette Square was cleared, the president walked outside the gates of the White House and walked across the street through the square to stand in front of St. John's Church. In a photo op, he waved the Bible and declared the United States is the greatest country in the world. DC police chief said DC police did not participate in the movement of the president from the White House to St. John's Church. A DC man says he sheltered about 70 protesters who were allegedly corralled and pepper-sprayed by police on Monday night in Northwest. The curfew in the district ended at 6 a.m., and the protesters left his home safely and peacefully. The man says at about 8:30 p.m. he was sitting outside and saw police set up a bridge on 15th Street and Swan Street Northwest that turned into a holding area. People started sitting on his porch and asked if they could charge their phones and use the bathroom, he said. A massive Black Lives protest for George Floyd got underway in Bethel, Maryland, Tuesday afternoon. Demonstrators gather in downtown Raleigh for the fourth day in a row for George Floyd protest. Protesters are gathering in downtown Raleigh for the fourth consecutive day. The protesters are part of a nationwide movement demanding change and racial equality in the United States of America. 4 p.m. update. Raleigh police officers briefly took a knee with the protesters who had gathered near the state capitol building. It's a symbol of unity that has been seen in cities across the nation. The protest is supposed to last until the curfew starts at 9 p.m. One person taken to hospital following shooting in West Palm Beach. One person was taken to the hospital Tuesday morning after being shot, officials said. According to police, the incident happened at 10:49 a.m. along the 4600 block of North Congress Avenue. One person was taken to the hospital. Their condition is unclear. The incident is now under investigation. Anyone with information is asked to call police. Thousands turn up in Hollywood for protests prompted by rapper YG. Thousands on Tuesday turned up for a protest in Hollywood after more than 100 people were arrested the day before, aimed at looting and civil unrest. And now let's take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market closed for this Tuesday evening. And your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the green and went up. Your Nasdaq closed in the green and went up. S&P 500 closed in the green and went up. Gold closed in the red and went down. Oil closed in the green and went up. US 10-year closed flat. Euro/USD closed flat. And VAX closed in the red and went down. Stocks jump as Wall Street focuses on the economy reopening. S&P 500 now up 40% from March low. Stocks rose on Tuesday as traders focused on the reopening of the economy from the coronavirus pandemic, even aimed civil unrest around the U.S. Police used tear gas, push back peaceful protesters for Trump church visit. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
At the White House, where President Trump spoke out for the first time from the Rose Garden, vowing to send U.S. troops into the streets of American cities if local authorities don't control the protests. Those remarks came just moments after the administration asked police to clear peaceful protesters from the park across the White House so the president could stage a photo op. Cecilia Vega starts us off from that site, St. John Episcopal Church. Good morning, Cecilia.
Yeah, George, good morning to you. This was, as you said, that backdrop for that photo op. And now in the face of all of this controversy, the White House is saying that those authorities moved in on those peaceful protesters in order to enforce Washington, D.C. 7 p.m. curfew. But let me tell you what the reality was. Those U.S. Park Police, those Secret Service police moved in on those peaceful protesters a full 25 minutes before that curfew was supposed to even start. And they cleared the way. And then President Trump showed up right here for that photo op. Outside the White House, protesters facing off against authorities, kneeling and raising their hands in peaceful demonstration. But then, almost suddenly, U.S. Park and Secret Service police began shoving and hitting, striking this Australian news crew as they were live on the air. Oh! Whoa! And as police move in, they fire tear gas on the crowd. While inside the grounds of the White House, a remarkable split screen. The president claiming to be an ally of peaceful protesters.
I am your president of law and order and an ally of all peaceful protesters.
President Trump called on governors to deploy the National Guard, threatening to dispatch active duty U.S. military to American states if they don't crack down. But to do that, he would have to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, a rarely used law that hasn't been enacted since the Rodney King riots in the 1990s.
If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
And in Washington, D.C., where the president has jurisdiction, President Trump acting with force.
As we speak, I am dispatching thousands and thousands of heavily armed soldiers, military personnel, and law enforcement officers to stop the rioting, looting, vandalism, assaults, and the wanton destruction of property.
And then, in a made-for-reality TV primetime moment, the president and his entourage left the White House and walked through that park where protesters had been cleared moments earlier. He went to historic St. John's Episcopal Church, which had been burned in a fire during protests a night earlier. There, the president held up a Bible for the cameras. Is that your Bible?
It's a Bible.
Standing in various poses for a full minute and a half. He then summoned his top aides to join him in the photo op.
Okay, thank you very much. We have the greatest country in the world. Thank you very much, everybody.
In Delaware, presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden paid a very different visit to a place of worship, meeting with community leaders at Bethel AME Church in Wilmington.
Hate just hides. Doesn't go away. And when you have somebody in power who breathes oxygen to hate under the rocks, he comes out through the rocks.
The remarkable scene in D.C. followed a remarkable conference call earlier in the day where the president berated governors of both parties.
They're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. You have to arrest people, and you have to try people, and they have to go to jail for long periods of time.
On the call, Illinois Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker criticizing President Trump's rhetoric.
I've been extraordinarily concerned about the rhetoric that's been used by you. People are feeling real pain out there. And we've got to have national leadership in calling for calm and making sure that we're addressing the concerns of the legitimate peaceful protesters. That will help us to bring order.
Now, this church carries significant history in this city, in this country. Every sitting president since James Madison, including President Trump, has attended a church service here. But we are now being told by sources that the president was at least in part motivated to come here, George, for that photo op yesterday to counter those reports that he had been in the White House bunker during the protests here on Friday.
Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. Hi, everyone.
Okay, there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this evening broadcast of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. Thank you for watching, everyone. Have a great evening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another broadcast. I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Good night and bye.